Hi everyone, and welcome to the Taurus July 2021 self-connection reading. So this is one of 3 readings that I do for each sign each month, which focus on 3 different areas of connection. The self-connection reading specifically is about bringing awareness to yourself so that you can start to uncover your unique abilities, gifts, hopes, dreams, and needs. And then we have the spiritual connection reading, which shows you how to utilize those elements of self and connect them to the greater external environment to understand better where your purpose and place is to be able to utilize those unique gifts and needs and hopes and dreams of yours. And then we have our third and final, which is our partnership connection, which is basically connection with others in our external environment. And that's to help really show how you work with the energy of love and also the importance of what you bring to individual situations. And again, all of these readings are here to help you take a look at not only who you are as a unique individual, but helping you to find your purpose and place so that you can experience living authentically as yourself, that you're aware of who you are authentically, can engage that with your external environment, and find meaning and a sense of emotional fulfillment from that. This is I Am Illuminated Tarot and meaning-based spiritual coaching services. I am Lauren. Let's get right into your reading. So when we're thinking about self-connection, the first part we're going to take a look at is what to be curious about. So all of my readings focus on utilizing the Triad of Engagement, which is a tool I have developed that utilizes the 3 very simple principles of curiosity, courage, and contemplation, and demonstrate how in using each one of these principles together, you can really unlock awareness of self, of meaning, of also awareness to how you connect to others and the greater collective human experience. Because it's my belief that we're all individual, unique, spiritual beings, and we are all meant to fulfill a role. And in order to do so, we have to be aware of ourselves to be able to see that role in our external environment and our importance in filling it. All right, so we're going to start with pulling a Power of Surrender card for the element of curiosity. And this is where we're going to develop a question that you can ask yourself and think about for the month of July with regards to uncovering some aspect of yourself. So let's see, Taurus. What does Taurus need to be curious about to discover something new about themselves this month? Usually these cards pop right out. I am a Taurus sun sign, so I can understand perhaps, oh, okay. Maybe this is why. I can understand why maybe the cards are not coming out. All right, so for the element of curiosity and self-awareness for this week, for this month, we have surrender defensiveness. And it says, defensiveness is a sign of weakness. To communicate in a more empowered way, stay centered and hear someone out, then offer a clear, non-defensive response. Now, this may be triggering to some people, especially if we are sitting in the energy of defensiveness. And I know from being a Taurus sun sign myself that I can often get to a place of being very stubborn and wanting to express my opinions and my views and wanting to get those across. And what I've noticed is often we get defensive when we feel that we're not being heard. And so we are anticipating another's response or another's negative response. And so we try to either talk over the other person's response, or we try to, if we're not, let's say, dealing with a person directly, maybe a situation where we feel that we might not be correct, or that our viewpoint might not get across. We can attempt to mitigate that by almost over explaining. That can come across as defensive. So for instance, utilizing, let's say this is in a work environment where you can, let's say you want to tell your boss that you want to take a month off to travel through Europe. Now, I know obviously with the pandemic, that's not maybe one of the things that most people are doing right now, but just as an example. Now, before you even talk to your boss and give your boss a chance to ask questions and a chance to say, well, maybe this month isn't the best, but the following month might be okay. You instead send them this kind of defensive preliminary email saying, I'm stressed, I have to leave, this month is, oh, and I'm sorry guys, let me turn off my notifications. Those are gonna keep coming through. All right, sorry about that, Taurus. Okay, so, like I was saying, that then we might go ahead and shoot them, our boss, a preliminary email going over all of these things as to why we have to take off, why we have to be approved to take off next month for this vacation. So we're going to sit there and come across, even though we're just trying to simply prove our point, to say, you know, the tickets are cheap and I'm exhausted and I need a break and this is a great opportunity for me and yada and so forth. How it might come across to our boss is, you need to approve this or else. Instead of just opening up a dialogue and allowing the other person to be equally involved in the discussion. So that's just one example of defensiveness in a way where we're not meaning to be defensive, but where it can come across as being defensive. And, you know, the first sentence here where it says defensiveness is a sign of weakness. I don't really like that in this card, because sometimes we're pushed to have to defend ourselves, and that's not being weak. That's actually us in a certain circumstance rising to the occasion to stand strong behind a belief, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. But where I can see how this can get into, especially when we're looking at self-connection. Defensiveness, oftentimes, when we're talking about curiosity specifically, curiosity is helping us open up that bridge to an optimistic and receptive outlook towards whatever we're looking at. So whether this is looking at our external environment or whether this is looking at ourselves internally. So sometimes we can actually prevent ourselves from really engaging with a certain part of ourself because we're not being curious in a optimistic way and in an open way towards looking at ourselves and our abilities. We actually might cut ourselves off from utilizing a certain part of ourself, or from diving deep into understanding a side to ourselves by simply being closed off and saying, well, yeah, that's just the way I am, and I don't want to go there. Like I like this and I do this and this is how I work, and so this is just the way it's going to be. Instead of sitting there and saying, okay, well, these are patterns of behavior within myself, and perhaps now is where I can be curious as to how I can utilize it to be a strength maybe versus a weakness, or turning. It's very easy to actually turn a strength into a weakness and vice versa. So this month, when we're thinking about defensiveness, and we're specifically applying this towards our internal connection to self. So this reading is all about, what are you going to unlock about yourself with just yourself? And realize where perhaps defensiveness is getting in the way with your own internal communication, with your own internal awareness. Where are you So what I would ask myself as the question this month is, what is a part of myself that is a trigger point specifically to some aspect, a trigger point specifically around an aspect that when someone asks me to share this part of myself, it makes me feel defensive. It makes me not want to go past a certain point of self-awareness. So this can be one of a few things. This could be perhaps an ability where somebody will, let's say just externally to you, or even yourself might say, hey, I know that you like to write. Or you yourself are like, man, I used to really like writing. And right off the bat, you're like, yeah, but you know what? That just didn't work out for me. I'm a good writer, but the last time I tried to write something, it just didn't work out. Or I enjoy writing, but I don't have the time for it. And my life isn't set up for me to be a writer. Or if somebody on the external asks you about this, you instantly shut them down and are like, yeah, I used to write, but I don't go there anymore. No, it doesn't even fit into my environment. Or this can be a habit or a way of being. So again, this is a self-connection, self-awareness, how you act. And again, we're looking at strengths and weaknesses. So let's say you're somebody who is a procrastinator, which I'm a huge procrastinator. And it took me many years to not get defensive, both internally to myself, making excuses for why I wasn't doing something, and also when somebody else external to me or a situation external to me pushed me to do something that I wanted to put off to the side. And so these are the aspects that you're trying to be curious about. Because what I realize with procrastination is that sometimes procrastination, as much as it is, can be a weakness. Because yes, we don't get things done in a timely manner, or it can hinder us from being able to prioritize correctly. Procrastination also can be a strength in that sometimes when we start to really evolve and grow our connection to self and our awareness to self and our awareness of our body and kind of the whole package to ourselves, the mind, body, spirit connection, we can start to understand why we procrastinate. We can start to sense, okay, well, why am I choosing not to put energy consistently towards this option? And I consistently put it towards this option. And you can start to realize that your body is naturally prioritizing things for you because something might not be in alignment. And instead of you being able to utilize those words and being able to understand your body and understand your own inner workings, you simply just keep kind of in the back of your mind holding yourself accountable and feeling guilty for not doing this task over here, which you call procrastination, which in reality is not procrastination. It's actually your body telling you this is not what you're supposed to be focusing on. So this is kind of where you can start to unlock that those parts of yourself that maybe you've always seen as weaknesses and start to be curious about how they can be turned into a strength and what they're actually trying to tell you about yourself. So perhaps, let's bring it back to my original example of writing. So if every time somebody talks about writing or I think about writing, let's say every time I'm writing an email or I'm reading a book and I think, man, I used to love writing. I could write a book better than this. But then I get defensive and I bring up all of these reasons to myself why I am not going to write a book better than this. Or why I feel defensive when somebody mentions like, well, how come you never wrote a book? Well, because my life got in the way, that kind of thing. This is where then you need to sit and step back and say, why is this such a hot button for me? Why am I getting defensive? Where is this kind of protective quality coming from? Because when you think about it, defensiveness is our first kind of instinct to protect. And sometimes our first instinct to protect a part of our unique internal self has been developed from a place of hurt, has been developed from a place of, we tried to bring out this vulnerable part of ourselves, and instead of it reaping the benefits and helping us find our place and purpose, it just brought in criticism. And so instead of continuing to work with it, like let's say falling off of a bike and getting back on and going forward, we pull it within and we hide it. And then eventually that becomes a point of kind of frustration. It might even become a point of embarrassment. You don't want people to know that you used to do this and it didn't work out, or to realize that you were criticized for something back in the day. And then this is where that defensiveness comes up, because it's like this little baby part of yourself and you don't want it to get hurt again. So for you to help unlock something that's meant to be vulnerable, meant to be seen, this month is about asking yourself that tough question. What gets me defensive? What aspect of myself, whether I'm thinking about it or somebody else is mentioning it, that pushes me to defend it? But defend it in a way that isn't going to open up a dialogue or tap into that beautiful element of curiosity to think, okay, yeah, what about this part of myself? Like, you're right, I haven't written in 25 years. Like, if I start now, what could happen? And then as you become curious throughout the month and you start to realize a pattern in some aspect of yourself where defensiveness does come up, this is where you can start to unlock that a little bit and say, where can I tap back into this? Or let's say it is a way of being. Let's say it is procrastination. How can I start to turn this into a positive and work with it instead of keeping it as this negative aspect where I'm constantly trying to hide it? And instead come out and say, you know what, I'm not a procrastinator. I'm just somebody who really understands where I want to put my energy, what resonates and what doesn't. And this is how we start to change our view, our perspective of both ourselves, and then be able to express that to others in a healthy way that allows them to say, oh, wow, yeah, that person, I never thought about it that way. I've never thought about procrastination as a beneficial way to figure out how to prioritize your time. So that's your first point for curiosity. Now I'm going to pull a card here for courage. So courage, when we're looking at our self-connection, courage is this point where it's actually the seat of our power, our personal power. This is the one aspect of self that or our experience that we get to control, because we are, with courage, making decisions and taking action with regards to our authentic self. So what we are trying to get away from is making decisions just kind of off the cuff that don't actually hold any value to us. So that every time we are faced with a decision throughout our day, to be able to engage our authentic selves with that decision, we bring it back to ourselves. Okay, do I want to commit to being the driver at my kids' field trip? And to bring that back to yourself, is that of value to you? Do you want to is it of value to you as part of your self-expression to be with your child, to see them experience this awesome field trip? Or is it detracting from actually something that is more valuable to you? Not that you don't value time with your child, but that in that time frame, you could actually be working on your personal business. Or you could be utilizing that 2-hour window of time to be able to just dedicate to self-care, which could be taking a nap or doing some meditation or journaling. Or and this can be any type of decision. This is the decision where you always have two choices. Saying yes to something always means you're saying no to something, and the reverse is true as well. When we say no, we're saying yes to something. So keeping that in mind. So as we're moving towards courage, the spirit animal that came out for you is nightingale spirit, and it says love is all around. And this is the number 41, breaking down to the number 5. And I love this card. First of all, I love nightingales. But when we're thinking about love is all around, and we're bringing this back to ourself and our connection to self, and where we choose and how we choose to take action from our connection to self. When we're thinking about love is all around. I think what I'm intuitively getting from this is in conjunction with the defensiveness card, where, and this is another question, again, these are all questions to unlock awareness about you as a unique individual and how you work. Where do you make decisions thinking that you're not going to be supported? Feeling like love is not all around you, feeling like you are not, and I think really just getting back to like really feeling supported by others in your life. So where are you taking action that ends up perhaps getting you out of alignment with self and causing you to maybe feel a little frustrated or a little like you're having to almost be a martyr in your own life because you don't feel that you can make decisions and take action from a place of authenticity, knowing that that might put a burden on others around you to accommodate in some way, but being able to have faith. Trying to think of how else to explain this. So the other way I would see this is when you're talking about the energy of love, where are you also perhaps taking action and making decisions based from a place where you think it's coming from a place of love for another, but ultimately it's hurting yourself. So again, this kind of gets into this martyr element of, but I'm doing it for you. I'm going to take on all of these extra responsibilities at work for my team because I'm doing it for them, because I'm showing them that I love them. But in reality, that's not allowing you to be authentic. In reality, you don't need to be working until 8 o'clock at night where you are not actually having the quiet time and the rest time to connect with yourself. Or you're you're making the decision to be the stay-at-home parent when that doesn't resonate with you. But instead of relying on the energy of love and realizing that love is all around, and if you would express this to your partner, that you guys could both, instead of, again, coming from this place of being defensive right off the bat of like, well, I have to be because they're the ones working. This was our original plan. And so I have to stay a stay-at-home parent. And if I bring it up, it's going to, I'm going to have to defend my position, and instead just step back and realize, okay, connection to self. This may have been an original decision or communication or agreement that was made. But now at this point, for me, authentically, it's no longer working for me. Being a stay-at-home parent is not fulfilling for me at this point. And it's okay to admit that. It's not that because you don't love your children, it's because you're being called to do something else. And so this is where you have to really rely on faith. So with curiosity, we're opening up that optimistic bridge to kind of the what if, the openness to the what if parts of ourself and our external environment. And we're engaging with a sense of awe and wonder. With courage, we are engaging with faith. faith that when we decide to take action, that it will reap a positive outcome. And especially when we choose to take action in an authentic way from our individual self, that it'll bring forth a positive action, even if we can't see it in the moment, that it will lead to that, because the whole purpose of us acting is that we have to act from a place of personal awareness, that we're meant to unlock and share our unique selves. And so if you are feeling called right now to tell your significant other that you don't want to be the stay-at-home parent, then have faith that in expressing this in an open way, taking action towards it, that it will bring a benefit and help unlock a further part of yourself. Perhaps you are meant to donate your time or to get back into the work world in some capacity because there's some part of yourself that needs to be of service now outside of the home to the greater collective experience. But you have to be aware of where you're holding yourself back, or where perhaps you're taking action from a place of kind of reverse love, of where you're saying it's for others, but in reality it's bringing you into this place of martyrdom that only fuels frustration and more disconnection between you and yourself. So keep in mind, a question I would ask around action is, where are you not acting on something within yourself and expressing it, and really having that faith that love and support is all around you, so that as you express and take action from something within yourself right now that maybe feels a little frustrating, that as you express that the energy of love is going to come in and support the change that is needed to help break that block of frustration right now around whatever aspect of self you feel is not being expressed or that you can't take action on. Okay, now we're going to take a look at contemplation. And contemplation is the final principle in the Triad of Engagement. Contemplation is very important. This is where we get to integrate. This is where we get a chance to look at where we took action, and we get to look at consequences. We get to learn about those consequences. So it's our seat of continued self-education through direct experience. And when we're applying contemplation towards ourselves, and actually contemplation, so if curiosity is tapping into awe and wonder, and courage is tapping into faith, contemplation is tapping into connection. This is where we get to connect the dots, both internally and eventually externally. So, with contemplation coming up, the two cards that came up for, again, we're looking at questions to contemplate about ourselves. We have Imrama, so 2 came up, and it says, where are you being called to journey to? And we have the crumbling. What are you clinging to? So these 2 cards together are so interesting and beautiful. We have one, which is pulling you forward towards something. Where are you being called to journey to? But what is holding you back? What are you still clinging to? So you guys are really sitting in this energy of change, of self-change. So there is something within you right now that is being called up. And I look at, we are always directly connected to spirit. We are each a unique, singular individual. No one will ever live our life, ever. We can't live, just like we can't live another person's life. And the lives will never be duplicated because they don't exist at the same time, in the same place, with all of the same factors. Even twins don't live the same life. And so this is where we kind of get into that realm of destiny and free will. But when we think about where you're being called to, this is one of those times where, as that individual, you're being called now. There is some part of yourself, I think, between the surrender defensiveness and the Love is all around. Reminder, there's a part of you that's being asked to be exposed, to come out, and to remember that you are loved as who you are. And that, yes, it may be scary now to share a part of yourself or to express a need of yours right now, but that it's actually part of destiny. There's a reason why you're feeling this way. Because whatever part of yourself needs to be expressed, whatever need needs to be met, or whatever ability is waiting to be brought back out again and made vulnerable, it is needed in the greater collective experience. But there is something that you're clinging to. And I love this card because it shows sometimes what we can't admit to ourselves is that we're sitting here clinging to what is, clinging to the old, clinging to an agreement we made, clinging to a way of being. And yet right in front of us, we can see all of this beauty. It's like, if Dorothy never left the house that crashed and never entered the land of Oz, it may be full of unknowns. We may not know exactly what's going to happen by releasing this part of ourself again or by expressing this need of ours and making this change. But one thing I can tell for certain is that it's going to be a lot better, a lot more colorful out there than it is right now if you stay on this side of the doorway. You might not know exactly where this road leads inside here, but it's a heck of a lot better than sitting on the dark side of the doorway. So when we're thinking about contemplation really is about integration and connection. So this whole process this month of self-connection and awareness is to get you to connect and contemplate on where right now as a unique soul, as a unique individual, are you feeling called to journey to. This doesn't mean that you have to go on a vacation, like actually get on a plane or a train or go someplace. This means when you think of integration, we're integrating action with curiosity, opening ourselves up, and then taking action, and then we're taking a look, we're contemplating on the results. So as you're working this month with, okay, what am I being defensive around internally about a part of myself? Where am I not acting in accordance with some part of myself that is frustrated? Whether it's an ability or whether it's expressing a need or whether it's some other type of internal self, part of myself that I have to bring out. What is that leading to? So for instance, let's say we bring it back to writing, and let's say you do want to, you realize that writing is this kind of, the frustration point of you don't have the time in your day to write, so this is why you're not taking action on it. You have a fear point around it because the last time you tried to write something, it was a failure, or it was criticized, it was critiqued. And now you realize, okay, well, this is the thing that keeps coming up for me, and I do need to work with it. Well, what is the greater? So this is where the integration comes in. What is the greater purpose of this? Why is this part of myself being called out now? And it might not just be because writing is fun for you. It's that, and now of course the answer is going to be different for each individual, but for you, let's say you start to realize, well, the reason why writing keeps coming up now is because I realize that I want to write about a specific topic. Or I've realized that, just in the past couple years, my perspective has changed so much, and I've noticed that the younger generation, I don't feel like they're getting the stories that they need to hear, and I would love to write something that's going to elevate the younger generation's experience or teach them about something that I know. Or maybe the writing is around now just a form of self-expression, of being able to teach something that you've been sitting on for a while, but now you feel called to actually release and work with this topic or subject. And it's needed. It's something that needs to be brought to the attention, but there's something around the medium of writing which is going to help you unlock that. So this is where we find the deeper meaning in going through the process of suffering, going through the process of feeling frustrated, is that we see the greater meaning as to why perhaps we got critiqued on our writing back in the day. Maybe that critique, when we actually break through the defensive barrier and we go deeper, maybe that critique was, this person doesn't seem to have a voice, doesn't seem to have a voice or a reason or an outlook that makes them special. So why read what they write? They're a great writer, but now you have that perspective. Now you have that unique voice. You have something that you want to write around. And suddenly you realize that critique is just the key to unlocking now the ability for you to write and it be successful. Or let's bring it back to, let's say, procrastination. And so this is like some aspect of yourself that you've been procrastinating and you sit with it and it eats away at you, and you feel like you're constantly struggling with it. And you look at it as this like weak part of yourself, and maybe your significant other is like, you always put this task off and you always put this off, and maybe it's affecting your work life now. And instead turning this into a positive to realize, no, this is my way of saying, I don't want to do that. Yeah, I am procrastinating and doing the housework because in reality, I don't want to be a stay-at-home parent anymore. I may have signed up for this, but I'm realizing now that this is not where my talents lie. This is not opening up anything for myself. This holds no meaning. I have done it. I have learned it. I've allowed it to unlock an aspect of myself, but now I realize that I need to do something else. And so no, I'm not just a procrastinator. It's that I'm actually being called to go back into this work field of whatever, because I feel like it's now part of my journey, like it's going to have meaning and value to myself. And then as you connect with this underlying meaning, this is what's going to end up allowing you to express this part of yourself, unlock this part of yourself in a more heightened, elevated, evolved way, so that then you can open that discussion up to your significant other to say, I really feel called to go back into this industry because I've been the why, giving them the meaning behind it. And then opening it up to the discussion of, okay, how are we going to do this? Are we going to have to get daycare? Are we going to have to ask mom for help? How can we work together through the lens of love and honoring each unique individual, as well as the connection, the greater external connection, the connection between yourself, the connection between each other, the connection on an external level? How can you honor that from a place of love, but be able to ensure that your needs are being met and this part of yourself, this calling, is actually being met as well? All right, Taurus, I think this is a great month for self-awareness. I really do think that there's some part of yourself that really needs to be unlocked. And you just have to remember, every time you feel that element of like, I have to over-explain, I have to preemptively get my points across, that's where you pull back, and that's where you open yourself up to the energy of love and say, you know what? No, I'm going to be the quiet one. I'm going to just simply express this part of myself, or this need, or the reason why I want to start doing something, this hobby again, or whatever it is. And I'm going to just see what comes back to me, to be open again. So this is where we're working with that self-connection and working with openness, and have confidence and faith that in taking that action towards unlocking this part of yourself, that it will be mirrored back in the energy of love and support that the universe is actually prompting you to work with now. The universe is not going to prompt you to do something and then push you down while you do it. It's going to prompt you to come up and evolve along with this aspect of yourself. All right, Taurus, I hope that this has been an illuminating reading. I hope that you check out your spiritual connection readings and your partnership connection readings as well. If you'd like to book a personal tarot reading or a one-on-one spiritual coaching session, the link to my website is in the description box below. Bye.